Welcome to I Read It, where we feature a new cool story every day. Subscribe to the channel and tap the notifications bell for new content. In today's story, Black Knight 666 tells how his entitled aunt tried to steal his computer and hits his mom. Entitled aunt and my mom used to get along good, well, as good as two sisters usually get on, but when entitled aunt had a kid, almost all contact was dropped between them, and she now only calls my mom to ask for a small loan of, insert a large amount of money here, or other favors like her driving down to look after her entitled kid for a day. She lives over 4 hours away, but you can't stay the night as I don't have room, and gets offended when my mom declines. Anyway, so as a sort of olive branch, my mom got quite ill a few months prior, and had one of those moments where she didn't want any regrets when she died. My mom invited entitled aunt and her entitled kid around for a few nights so they can catch up and whatnot. So, I'm waiting at the door, the car pulls up out front and I open the door when she rings the bell. Me opens the door. Hey Auntie Mar. Entitled aunt, hold this. And shoves bag in my face, which I take. I kind of write this off since it was a 4-hour journey with a, most likely screaming child. My mom and entitled aunt proceed to exchange pleasantries, but I notice my mom is doing basically all the niceties. How was your journey? Etc. Not really important to the story, I just like to show that she's not a nice lady. Anyway, so a few minutes go by, I make some tea and a hot chocolate for entitled kid. He didn't ask for it, I was just being nice. Entitled kid, it's cold. It's steaming at the top, so I know he's lying. Me laughs awkwardly and sits down. Entitled kid blinks at me. It's still cold. At this point, I realize he's not joking. Me entitled kid, I can see the steam. It's not cold. Entitled aunt, oh, he just watched Ratatouille. For those of you who don't know, Ratatouille is an animated film about a chef rat, and is trying to be his name of some character from the film. Be a dear and remake one for him. Side note, from what I remember his character never says the food's cold. But I could be wrong. I kind of sit still for a bit, not sure if she's serious. Entitled aunt, now please. Laughs at entitled kid, who gleefully holds up his cup. Now it should be noted at this point that my mom let it happen since she was desperate to get on with her sister. But that will change later, don't worry. Me, knowing my mom wants this to work out, sure, whatever. I go into the kitchen and set down the mug out of view, rattle around with spoons and jugs, and bring the same hot chocolate back. The kid is fine with it, but entitled aunt. Oh no. Entitled aunt, you didn't remake that. I just saw you put that on the side and bring it back out. I want a hot one. Entitled aunt, don't worry honey, you'll get a hot one. At this point I'm just annoyed. The kid was fine with it, entitled aunt was just being a D. Me, well, the microwave is in their motions towards the kitchen, knock yourself out. So, I don't cause a scene, I'll leave the room and go upstairs to my room. Now recently I've started playing a new game on my PC called BioShock 2. For those of you who don't know, it's a horror game that takes place underwater. Now a key point to both this story and the game is that in the game there are little girls who run around called Little Sisters, and their job is to collect resources from dead bodies around the various game levels. Each one is protected by a huge man in a diving suit known as Big Daddies, which are usually referred to by the Little Sisters as Daddy or Mr. Bubbles, for whatever reason, I don't know. And in the second game you play as one of these Big Daddies and have to defend these little girls whilst they harvest the resources. If you've played the game or are super intelligent, you probably know where this is going. Anyway, so I boot up the game and begin playing. A few minutes pass and I assume entitled kid gets bored because I hear him scampering upstairs and, without knocking, enters my room. Me, knowing the game is quite gruesome and I shouldn't play it in front of him, pauses the game. Hey, could you please knock next time? Entitled kid, I don't have to knock at home. Me, you're not at home. Entitled kid, ignoring this, what are you playing? Me, an adult game. Entitled kid, but you're not an adult. Me, aha, you got me. I don't like him much, but I get he's a kid, and, although he's annoying as hell, I do recognize that I've got to bear with him a little bit since he's only about 5 to 6 and doesn't really know any better than to be annoying and squeaky. Entitled kid, can you play some please? Me, not with you here mate, as I said, it's an adult game. He storms out, slamming my door behind him. I was a bit confused since I, though annoyed, understood why I wasn't allowed to play certain games when I was his age. A few moments pass and, this is where it gets a tad unbelievable, so fair enough if you want to call BS. In the game I set the little sister down and she begins harvesting the body and several enemies attack, attempting to get the little sister, just as I hear footsteps coming up the stairs. I have a little eye roll as I know exactly what's about to happen. It's entitled aunt. She stands outside my door for a few seconds, I assume thinking of something to say, but I give it no thought. Just as she's about to walk in, without knocking I might add, the little sister in the game gets attacked and lets out a high-pitched daddy, asking me, her guardian, for help. Now at the time, I didn't really think much of it as I know full well what I'm doing, whereas all entitled aunt knows at this point is that I'm a 16-year-old boy and she knows full well what most 16-year-old boys are. Motivated by entitled aunt, banging hand on the door. What the frick is wrong with you? Me, huh? Entitled aunt barges into the room, which if she thought I really was doing the thing guys do is pretty creepy. What the frick did you show my angel? Me, pauses game. Oh, he asked to see the game and I said no since it's an 18. Entitled aunt, don't lie to me you little s. He just came downstairs crying because you played an adult thing in front of him. Me, what? Entitled aunt, this is a game. Entitled aunt, I just heard a woman moaning in here. Don't lie to me. Me, what you heard was a character in the game. If you sit down I'll show you. At this point entitled kid is at the door and wanders in. Entitled kid, points to pause screen. That's it. Me, I'll play some of it for you to prove it's not porn if you just sit down. Gestures to the bed. I'd like to point out that I wasn't being aggressive at all during this. She was screaming at me and I was talking normally. Both of them take a seat on my bed. Me, you might want to tell entitled kid to leave, it's a grown-up game. Entitled aunt, still angry but a little quieter. If it's good enough for you it's good enough for him. Plays the game anyway. Big mistake. Now I understand that I wasn't smart in this situation and didn't really think it through. I then proceeded to show her and her little brat about 2 minutes of me blowing enemies' heads off with a shotgun and a huge drill. I did mention before it was gruesome. I paused, turned around, and realized my mistake. Entitled aunt looked mortified, however, entitled kid looked fine. Entitled aunt, what kind of sick porn is that? I was surprised, surely she couldn't be that stupid. I was expecting her to flip out because I showed it in front of her kid. But no. She still thought it was some kind of kink I had. Because why wouldn't you? I roll. Me, entitled aunt, it's clearly not porn. Entitled aunt, I'm telling your mother right now. And we're taking your Xbox right now as compensation. I decided not to point out that it was a PC, not an Xbox. Entitled aunt points to my monitor and holds out her hand like she expects to be able to carry like that and that I'd just give it over. Me, WTF. No way. Entitled aunt, give it now. Me, oh, get the frick out of here crazy lady. Entitled aunt tries to grab the monitor and I smack her arm away. Entitled aunt, did you just hit my child you fat slob? Me, frick off now. Entitled aunt storms downstairs, dragging entitled kid by the wrist and I hear her yelling at my mum downstairs. Calling her a bitch and whatnot for letting me have a computer for that filth. I hear a thud and rush downstairs worried. Luckily it was only her entitled kid having a tantrum on the floor. I'm watching from the staircase and entitled aunt hasn't noticed me yet. Entitled aunt, what kind of S-type parenting are you doing? I demand to have his Xbox and we're sleeping in his room tonight. Mom, look, can everyone please just calm down? My aunt slaps my mum. This is where I lose my ass. Now I'm 6'1" and am taller than my aunt by about a foot. I'm also not particularly muscly but am quite big and, when wearing the correct clothes, can look like I am. Me, emerging from staircase out. Now. Entitled aunt, ignoring what I said and you. Listen here bud, me out. Now. Entitled aunt, what? Me, get the frick out of my house now and if you come back I'll call the police. At this point, I'm about 2 feet away from her and she realizes exactly how tall and, supposedly, muscly I am. It's also worth noting that I'd never have touched her or her son in a violent way, but she didn't know that. Entitled aunt, you can't do that. Me, I can. You and your little s-stain you call a son, get out of my house right now or I'll make you. Entitled aunt, we're family. I was shocked at this. Like, how can she even consider making that excuse when my mom was currently crying with a big red mark on her cheek? Me, get out. Now. Entitled aunt, realizing she's beaten, begins grabbing her things and tells entitled kid to get his shoes on so she can tie them. Me, ope. Out. Points to the door. Entitled aunt, yes. I'm getting his shoes on you D. Me, put them on in the car now, frick off. Entitled aunt moves towards the door and I open it for her. She's grabbing entitled kid's wrist and is practically dragging him along whilst he wails that he wants my game. I throw a bag she forgot onto the ground and slam the door behind me. I immediately check on my mom, who's sobbing, quietly clutching her face. She was fine, and I think it was most shocking that she was understandably devastated. She spoke to me later that night and gave me a huge hug, thanking me. Needless to say, we didn't hear from Entitled Aunt for several months until she apologized a few weeks ago and proceeded to ask for money. My mom blocked her. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comment section. Help us grow so more people will join us. Thank you for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.